The band Alcatrazz just released a new album. It's their fifth album, titled V, or for number 5. It's a band that was around in the 80s. They made a comeback last year with an album titled Born Innocent. And it's just a year later and they're back. So it's a band that's gone through like many lineup changes. But this band also has had some really big names as members. So I'm going to give you a quick history of the band. Then I'll talk about the new album. So they started out with their debut called No Parole from Rock and Roll. This one featured Graham Bonnet. He was the former singer of Rainbow. Featured Yngwie Malmsteen. We know him as one of the most popular guitar shredders. So this was the album that kind of like launched his solo career. Clive Burr, the drummer from Iron Maiden, who left after Number of the Beast. He was originally in the band, but he was there for like a week. He ended up quitting because the band was going to be based in America, not England. They replaced him by Jan Ulvena. He was an Iron Butterfly drummer who had just left Alice Cooper's band. And over the years, they went through like many lineup changes. For example, Steve Vai was in the band for a while, maybe like 2 years. The band breaks up in 1987 and they return in 2006. So Graham Bonnet still on vocals over the years up to 2020. Now on this album they have a new vocalist. His name is Doogie White, and he was actually the vocalist on the last Rainbow album, Stranger in the Soul. That was from 1995. So this band does have this connection with that classic heavy metal and the band Rainbow. And I will be dropping a lot of names throughout this video. So the band right now does have 2 original members, Gary Shea on bass and Jimmy Waldo on keyboards. And what I understand is that Graham Bonnet, he's not in the band, but he's forming his own version of Alcatrazz called Graham Bonnet's Alcatrazz. Kind of like what's happening with like Judas Priest right now with Priest and KK's Priest. In the new version, Graham Bonnet has Jeff Loomis on guitars. That's going to be interesting because Jeff Loomis is a metal guitarist. He was in bands like Nevermore and Arch Enemy. Those were like death metal bands. So that's going to be interesting. Hopefully that will come out pretty soon because I want to hear what that sounds like. But this album, it's classic rock meets classic metal. We got the sound of Rainbow and Deep Purple. But there's also some like heavy parts. Some of it sounds like classic Iron Maiden. At times they slow it down with a little bit of that like a Black Sabbath sound. It's like 80s heavy metal mixed with a little bit of like classic rock, mixed with a little bit of like that like power metal sound, maybe like a European power metal. So I'll talk about the songs. There are 12 songs. The album is about an hour long. First song, Guardian Angel, comes right out the gate. Some heavy metal shredding, very fast paced with a high speed drum beat. Lots of melody in the vocals. Vocals and keyboards really give this a Deep Purple feel. Guitarist Joe Stump definitely has that like Yngwie Malmsteen influence with his neoclassical shredding. Nightwatch, that kind of sounds like power metal in the intro, but it kind of goes into a really crunchy guitar riff. Another heavy song has this heavy gallop. It reminds me of that 80s Iron Maiden. Keyboards really stand out in the song. It has kind of like a classic Deep Purple sound. Sort of Deliverance. This one has some chugging guitars and some soaring vocals. Keyboards really stand out here and has a pretty cool guitar solo. Turn of the Wheel. This one reminds me more of that like classic 80s. Now when I heard the opening riff, I thought of bands like Rat or Dokken, you know, that type of sound. Also incorporates lots of melody, you know. And also the next song, Blackheart. This one has almost like a European power metal feel, but reminds me a little bit of like Blind Guardian. That was kind of like the feel I got. But it still has that classic rock and like metal melodies. You know, you hear the keyboards a lot. It does have that Deep Purple sound, and that's like one of those bands that I will be like dropping throughout this video because they do sound a lot like them. Grace of God, this is another good one. Has a heavy keyboard sound followed by some shredding guitar riffs. Vocals are very melodic in this one. Song is a cool keyboard solo followed by another one of those like Yngwie inspired new classical guitar solos. Return to Nevermore, so they slow it down a little on. This one reminds me of like early Rainbow or maybe like Black Sabbath from that like mid to late 80s period. The tone on this is a little darker, slightly more haunting. Probably one of the better songs on the album. They bring back some heaviness with Target. It's kind of classic rock meets power metal, and a little more darker, this one. More of like a metallic deep purple sound and some guitar shredding. Maybe Tomorrow, this is another standout track. It's a little slower. It has like a deep purple meets Black Sabbath sound. Very heavy keyboards, but the keyboards are more like atmospheric. They do play some heavy guitar riffs, and this one also has that like slightly like haunting and darker tone, something that can be heard on the other songs. House of Lies, this one brings back that classic rock and metal sound, some nice melodic grooves, and the vocals are very good. Alice's Eyes, this is one of the heavier songs, kind of brings back that 80s metal, some crunchy riffs, has that like fast like Iron Maiden gallop. It's a little darker, a little heavier, and does have like a more of a classic metal sound. Think of maybe like Judas Priest or something from like the new wave of British heavy metal. And the final song, Dark Day for My Soul, it's a power ballad. Kind of starts out sounding like symphonic metal, but the final verse is just piano and vocals. The keyboards do come in later before the chorus, but it's followed by some like heavy guitars, and it does have that classic power ballad formula. So in conclusion, as you heard throughout this review, I was dropping lots of band names. They did remind me a lot of those classic bands like Deep Purple, Rainbow, Black Sabbath. That was my impression of the album. I'm not saying this band is a clone of those bands, more like a fusion of that like classic rock meets classic metal sound. I actually like this a lot more than I thought I would. One of those classic bands I'm not really too familiar with. I probably have heard a few of the songs from the 80s. Nothing I could really like recognize at this moment. I am interested in listening to the older albums. But I will give this album an 8.5 out of 10. All the songs are very good. And definitely interested in doing like a deep dive into their discography. So that is it. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John. Please check out some of my other videos that I have. I will link some over here. And remember, please like, comment, subscribe. I pretty much upload videos pretty much every day. And that is it. So thank you. I'll be back tomorrow with a video from a new album by Santana. So stick around for that. That will be Sunday morning. So thanks for watching. See you all in the next one.